Today, we're diving into one of the most disturbing criminal cases in American history. And this is a story about unimaginable horror for sure, but it's also a story of incredible survival and about the one woman whose courage brought an end to decades of absolute terror.
And that's the voice of the man at the center of this case, David Parker Ray. Just that one sentence, taken from an audio tape he actually forced his victims to listen to, it gives you this chilling peek into the calculated cruelty that defined his crimes. See, for him, it wasn't just about physical violence. No, it was all about total, complete, psychological domination.
So, how did this all come to light? Well, pretty much everything we know about David Parker Ray, we know because one person had an unbreakable will to live. His entire secret world started to unravel with just a single, desperate act of bravery and escape.
And to really get a handle on her resilience, you've got to understand her backstory. The woman who escaped, Cynthia Vigil, had already faced so much tragedy in her life. That history, it fueled this fierce determination inside her to survive because, she knew firsthand exactly what was at stake.
So here's what happened. Back in March of 1999, Cynthia gets abducted and taken to Ray's trailer. For 3 days, she endured just horrific torture. But on that third day, she saw her chance. Ray was at work, and his accomplice left the keys to her chains on a table. A struggle breaks out, she actually defends herself with an ice pick and then just runs for her life. A neighbor found her, naked, except for a padlocked iron collar, and called the police. And that one phone call, well, it changed absolutely everything.
Okay, so Cynthia's escape just blew this whole case wide open. And now, the investigation kicks into high gear, and authorities finally start to get a real look at the man they'd eventually called the Toy Box Killer.
60. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the number of murders authorities think David Parker Ray might have committed. Now, he was only ever convicted of kidnapping and torture, but his own accomplices pointed the finger at him for dozens of murders spanning several decades. It just reveals the horrifying, staggering scale of his potential crimes.
And when law enforcement started profiling him, they realized pretty quickly this guy wasn't disorganized or impulsive, not at all. He was what's known as an organized lust killer. His crimes went on for over 4 decades, and his main weapon, his method, was this meticulously crafted $100,000 torture chamber that he called his toy box.
So what exactly was the toy box? Well, inside, authorities found this soundproofed semi-trailer just filled with the most horrific tools of torture: whips, chains, surgical instruments, even a generator for electric shocks. And get this, there was a mirror on the ceiling, forcing his victims to watch what was happening to them. Every single detail was designed for maximum terror and control. It's just sickening.
But see, the toy box wasn't just about physical pain. Far from it. It was really the centerpiece of this twisted, calculated psychological game he played to completely break his victims' minds.
To try and understand his mindset, it actually helps to look at his clinical diagnosis. He was diagnosed with paraphilia. And this psychosexual disorder, it kind of helps frame his obsession with control and torture as being central to his arousal, not just some byproduct of his crimes.
And here we go again, back to his own words from that horrifying tape. You can really see his method here. He planned to drug his victims to induce amnesia, to literally try and erase his crimes from their minds. This was his whole twisted strategy, right? To make sure he could never, ever be caught.
Someone actually did a linguistic analysis of that tape, and it reveals this blueprint for control. First, he used like 10 times the normal amount of profanity, just to intimidate and instill fear. His language showed this obsessive need for power. He dehumanized victims by only talking about their sexual functions, and he laid out this clear set of rules and consequences. His words, they were absolutely a weapon.
But here's a really disturbing part of this story. Ray wasn't acting alone. He actually cultivated this whole network of accomplices, people he pulled into his dark orbit to help him carry out these atrocities.
So who was in this inner circle? Well, it included his girlfriend, Cindy Hendy, who was right there with him, participating. There was Dennis Roy Yancey, an accomplice who confessed to at least one murder, and, maybe most disturbingly of all, his own daughter, Glenda, who went by Jessie. She lured women for her father, and this is wild, even though she had actually tried to warn the FBI about him years earlier, unsuccessfully, obviously. So what happened to them? Where's the justice here? Well, Cindy Hendy got 36 years, but was released in 2019. Dennis Yancey was released back in 2011, and his daughter, Jessie, served just 2.5 years. When you look at these outcomes, you just have to ask, what kind of justice is this? All right, so this brings us to the aftermath of it all. Ray's been captured, his accomplices are identified, and the legal process begins. But as you can probably guess, the search for real, complete justice, it turned out to be deeply, deeply frustrating. The whole legal outcome, everything, hinged on one critical failure from the investigation. You see, despite having videotapes, the toy box itself, and confessions from his accomplices, investigators never found a single body. One accomplice claimed Ray would dismember his victims and just dump them in a nearby lake. And without any physical remains, prosecutors just couldn't bring murder charges. Their hands were tied.
So in the end, Ray gets a 224-year sentence, but for kidnapping and torture, not for murder. And as you can see, his accomplices got way shorter sentences, even the one who had confessed to murder on Ray's orders.
But here's the thing, Ray would never even come close to serving that sentence. In 2002, less than a year after his formal sentencing, he died of a heart attack in prison. He basically took all of his secrets with him to the grave.
And that just leaves us with the central, haunting question of this whole entire case. His accomplices are free, his victims' remains have never been found. So, where's the justice for them, for their families? It's a question that honestly just hangs in the air, completely unanswered.
But you know what? This story doesn't end completely in darkness. Cynthia Vigil, the woman whose escape blew this all open, she transformed her trauma into action. She actually co-founded the nonprofit Street Safe New Mexico to protect other vulnerable people. She absolutely refused to be defined by what happened to her.
I think her own words really say it best. I am taking back my power and my rights to my own story. In a case that has so few answers, Cynthia Vigil's survival, her advocacy, that's the only real resolution we have. It's just an incredible testament to human strength in the face of pure evil.